After former Charleston City Councilwoman Marie Delcioppo stepped down from Charleston City Council in October due to health reasons, there are now 5 people running for her seat, District 1 on Charleston City Council, including Jen Gibson. I talk one-on-one with Jen for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook.
Jen Gibson, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Obviously, you're making a splash really here in the city of Charleston because you just announced that you're going to actually run for Charleston City Council District 1, which covers Kaneohe, Daniel Island, Answer, which is right here in downtown Charleston and other areas. In fact, you said this on Facebook, quote, "I'm excited to announce my candidacy for Charleston City Council District 1. I applaud Councilwoman Delcioppo's service to her community and continue to pray for her and her family as she focuses on her health. I'm running because I want our district represented by someone who will protect our quality of life." And I'm paraphrasing all of this for time constraints. But how do you define quality of life right now in District 1?
Quality of life in District 1 is good. We need to make sure that we protect it from overdevelopment so that we don't lose what makes Daniel Island great, what makes Kaneohe and Wando great, and what makes Ansonboro and the French Quarter great.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. And you also said this too on the Facebook page that is in that post. You said, quote, "I will prioritize people over profit." What have been those profits over people in District 1?
Without a doubt, development and developers not making adequate plans for what's going to come from all the people that come here. So, we absolutely have to make sure when we have new construction projects, which we have some significant ones happening out in the northern portion of the district, that we are making sure that there is land and money for a fire station, that there is land and money for the police station, that there is a rec center planned for that. We saw it on Daniel Island, that too much came after it was needed, and not enough roads, the schools weren't big enough. We know how many units this new construction project is zoned for, and it's 18,000. I don't think we'll build 18,000 units, but that's what it's zoned for. So before we start building, let's make sure there's a fire department that can handle it. Let's make sure that there's EMS drivers that are stationed nearby to help people. Too often, that's just been overlooked. The developer says, "It's my job to build homes and get out." And we need developers to be partners with us. Not just think of themselves as, in and out, and they have no responsibility to the community.
And I'm going to get to that in just a second, but I failed to mention this in the beginning of the interview. I just rushed through it. But obviously, I spoke to you for Quintin's Close-Ups many times about, issues on Daniel Island as you ran for the South Carolina State House, and now you're a candidate for Charleston City Council. But let me ask you this, Jennifer. How did your relationship begin with the residents of District 1?
Well, so actually, it began when I was in college. I lived in the Ansonboro part of the district when I was at the College of Charleston, working on my political science degree.
Where I am right now.
In all areas of the district. So, granted, one was like 30 years ago. But yeah, so I've had a relationship for a long time with District 1. We moved out into the Wando portion of the district 10 years ago. Wow. We built our home out here. We love it in Beresford Hall, and it's a wonderful community. We moved from Mount Pleasant to be a little bit closer to my husband's work.
Yes, ma'am. When you think of obviously overdevelopment and housing, and obviously issues with public transportation, how do you create conversations with a shared common ground?
There's a great deal of shared common ground. I think that everyone in this district wants to make sure that we are growing in a safe, responsible way. I am the first person to acknowledge that we have to continue growing. We have to continue to create new businesses. We need new neighbors so that we can make our community stronger and better. Having grown up in Mount Pleasant, while the development and the growth, I can say a lot of things about it that concern me, I also know that my husband and I probably wouldn't live here if we hadn't seen that kind of growth. There wouldn't have been the job opportunities. So, it's necessary. But we've got to make sure, I think we would all agree that we've got to do it responsibly, and we need to be smart about it, and we need to not give up our quality of life for a quick profit. We need to make sure that we're thoughtful and purposeful and really understand where we want our community to grow to, and make sure that every decision we make is not going to have unintended consequences and decrease our quality of life.
Where in District 1 do you identify and also develop those unique characteristics when it comes to residential, commercial, and mixed use?
You know what? I'm not sure I understand the question. You always ask awesome questions. I want to make sure I understand what you're asking.
Yes, ma'am. Where in the district do you identify as far as unique characteristics when it comes to residential, commercial, and mixed use?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are three distinct parts of our community in District 1. You've got the downtown area. Their need, that character is unique. Those needs are very different and distinct from the needs of the folks on Daniel Island. That's a more established community. We're still dealing with development out there, but largely the majority of the people that are on Daniel Island, those homes are there. Those homes are built. And then we have the Wando portion of the district. And it's facing a substantial set of issues. I would argue that this is the one that we've got to get right because the development's coming. The commercial properties are coming. I'm actually missing a meeting at my neighborhood association tonight that's going to discuss what's going on with the commercial property on Clements Ferry Road. So every area has their own challenges. I will tell you that I think what the three have in common is that we will be stronger if we promote local businesses. We want really great locally owned small businesses. That keeps all of the money right here in the community. It makes it easier for people to shop. We know better as business owners what our neighbors like. So, we have some great small businesses that are owned here that, I'll give a shout out to Beachables. They're right outside of my neighborhood and I love them. And they make the greatest mask and, they have awesome beach stuff. So anyways, but there's lots of great businesses and I want to see that because, those are people that live in the community. So that tax base is staying here. We're not shipping all of our profits off to some big corporation, some big city. So I really want to make sure that we are, focused on making it easy for small businesses to do business and serve the needs of our community.
And I met the owner of Beachables just a couple of months ago when I had to do some work for the restaurant at Five Church, and I met her with her new location on King Street, and we gave them a gift card to come into the restaurant. So that's always nice to see local businesses.
Yeah.
What is your 5-point plan for the Clements Ferry Road corridor?
So I don't have a 5-point plan for the Clements Ferry corridor. I would say I have a 3-point plan. My 3-point plan is that we need responsible development. And so that means working hand in hand with developers in the area to make sure that the infrastructure we need for that community is in place and built in time for it. So, we're already building homes out on that Kaneohe Plantation track, but yet the fire department that needs to service that area isn't there yet. And so let's make sure that we put the right infrastructure in place. The second thing I want to do is maintain our quality of life. We need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to mitigate flooding concerns. While it's not a huge issue in this part of Charleston, it will become an issue if we're not very careful and very purposeful. And then lastly, we need to protect the character of the community of the Wando area, which is distinct from Daniel Island and Ansonboro and the rest of city of Charleston. And so if we do those three things, we're going to make this a great place for people to come and do business and for new residents to move in, but also make sure that the residents who are already here get to keep what's special about this place.
How do you accommodate multi-use trails, wildlife areas, and low-impact drainage ideas by creating pockets of interconnected, protected open spaces that allows for interaction with nature out there?
That's exactly what we have to do. That is nail on the head. If we do that, we're good. We need walking trails. We need to make sure that we can bike to these places of business. I can easily bike up to the store that I just mentioned. We need to make sure that we don't necessarily have to jump in a car to do anything we want to do. We need to be able to get to go to restaurants and shopping in a way that is quick and easy. I think a real failed opportunity was that we didn't leave land for the proposed rapid transit system along Clements Ferry. We issued twice as many permits for multifamily homes as we did for single family homes. And that only works if you have a good system to move people up and down Clements Ferry Road. We can't absorb all those cars onto it. And so that was very short-sighted. It would have been relatively inexpensive to do it. Now that it's done, it's too late. Not that it can't be done later, but it will cost a fortune compared to what it would have cost to just set the land aside. And when we were ready, when we had the people, we'd be ready to go.
So what's the difference? What type of money would you all had if that would happen, and what type of money would you need now?
Well, that just comes into planning. So right now, we're talking about the new city plan, the plan for the next 10 years. And
Right.
so those type things need to be happening now. So we know over the next 10 years what the development's going to look like out here. We have the census numbers. We're growing hugely. I mean, it just continues to grow. And we need to make sure that when we do these budgets, I think the budget for this year's that we just approved was around 267 million.
Right.
We need to make sure that we're allocating the right amount of money now so that we don't face these billion-dollar infrastructure projects like 526 that we just keep pushing down the road and pushing down the road. So I would rather spend a little now so that we can save a lot later.
What's more important for District 1? Building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, and better utilizing the existing homes?
Well, that depends what part of the district you're talking about. So downtown, definitely, it's going to be about, rehabbing and making sure that we're using that space, making sure that those business owners and residents are taken care of. On Daniel Island, right now, what we're facing is this grab to build on every little piece of land left on Daniel Island. And so we're losing some of the green spaces that our community loves and enjoys. We've changed parks. We've made them smaller. So, that's going to look different. And then in this part of it, without a doubt, it's new construction, hands down.
Hands down. How will you maintain and enhance the existing residential and commercial character of your district and provide for compatible, appropriate, and high quality development and redevelopment?
That comes to planning, that comes to city planning. And so making sure that the zoning that we have is correct, making sure that we're not letting, businesses that don't belong in this area or residential units that don't belong in this area. And a big piece of that is going to be making sure that we have better integration of services between the county of Berkeley and the city of Charleston, because that's a huge problem for most of the folks in District 1.
How do you help local businesses boost their competitiveness among other businesses coming into your district?
Well, we make it easy to get to you. If it's convenient and easy to get to a business, especially a restaurant or something, if you can ride your bike or take a walk up to it, that right there is going to be huge. If you're employing local folks and paying them a livable wage, that makes a difference. And so we want to make sure that we're making that possible. And if we give too many incentives to large businesses that are coming in here and bringing, taking that money back out of the state, then we make it harder on our small business owners. So we really just need to recognize that small businesses make up over 50% of the businesses in the state. And we want to make sure that we're supporting them with our zoning ordinances, with our tax policies, and making sure that they're not paying the fair share of some of the larger corporations in the area.
How would you create a business preservation alliance for District 1?
I think that it's already there. We have the Metro Chamber of Commerce. We have we have Daniel Island Neighborhood Association. We have Daniel Island Community Association, and we're creating some of those out in this area. Downtown already has a very sophisticated system, so I think it's already there. I think what it is we as government officials have to go to those organizations, sit down, and just listen to what they need. And I don't think we need to create a new piece of government. I think we just utilize what we already have.
How do you protect the carriage industry?
I have complicated feelings about the carriage industry. So as you know, I was a travel agent for 10 years. And so I have been in countries around the world, cities around the world that really regret how they grew their tourism. One of the things the pandemic showed us is what happens to beautiful historical cities when they have too much tourism. And we saw them come back from that when we all had to stay at home. And to me, what that is a clear sign that you cannot be short-sighted and take quick gains now and hurt your community later. And so to me, some of what we do with the carriage industry isn't smart, isn't responsible. It's always going to have a place, I think, in the character of Charleston, but we can't do that at the expense of our health, our safety. And I think sometimes we're doing that right now.
What do you say to the average carriage worker who loves those horses, who needs a job, and really loves the character of the industry and the city?
I would say that those folks are always going to have a place in the tourism industry in Charleston. I know that they love the horses. I've talked to them. I've been with them. I think that the owners of those companies are are looking out for their profits and their business and not necessarily the horses and their employees. I want to make sure that somebody's taking care of that piece of it.
Have you been down to the barns lately? Palmetto, Old South, Carolina Polo?
So I live downtown and, always down there. I was down there today, this morning. And, I've been down there a lot this week taking meetings, and I've been behind the horses. A sanitation truck that's tasked with cleaning up the mess that the horses leave. I passed two. So there is evidence of the carriage industry everywhere downtown. The question we need to ask ourselves is it benefiting Charleston? Is it benefiting the tourist? Is it benefiting the agriculture piece of it? Are the horses well taken care of? I think that for the most part, they are, but I think we need to be asking ourselves, is that really what we want Charleston to be known for? Is that really what we highlight about our city? Is that really what keeps residents safe and really allows us to move efficiently around the city?
What is the biggest difference? Because most of these carriage companies like Palmetto have been here for 40-something years. What is the difference from 40 years ago to right now when you think of the carriage industry?
Well, because for years we've been number one on the tourist destination list, and we now have cruise contractors stopping, and so we have an increase in short-term day 1 or 2 day tourists here, and so there's a lot more people taking advantage of these, which means there's more demand for the horses. There's more carriages on the road, and until we make some decisions about that, we're just going to continue to see an increase.
How would you push for safety measures within the region's new and existing transportation facilities?
So we have to continue to increase funding so that we can develop those transportation resources. It's kind of a horse and cart thing that you have to have a sophisticated system that is timely, is on time, frequent, and goes a lot of places for people to use it. And so it's kind of an all-in type thing. There's going to be a lot of infrastructure money coming from the federal government to South Carolina. And let's make sure that we're spending that money smart. Let's make sure that we're building a mass transit system that will move people safely, efficiently, in a way that we want to use our public transportation. We can build that system here. We need to make sure we're investing in it. It's the only way that we're going to move forward. We have water all around us. We have these bridges and these expensive roads that we have to build. We have marshes. It is not feasible that we're going to keep continuing to widen and build more roads. That's a part of it. That's a piece of it. But we have got to figure out how we can get away from our cars.
Would you widen Clements Ferry Road?
Clements Ferry Road was already widened, and it's being widened now. What are we going to do? Take it to a 6-lane road? No, I think we add that rapid transit line and help people move quickly and efficiently, throughout the community.
How would you help the city educate those residents about those features, transportation features that you just mentioned?
Well, we support organizations that are already doing the work. Charleston Moves is an excellent example. CARTA is an excellent example. And so we need to provide more opportunities for people to understand what it looks like. But most importantly, if you don't have an efficient system that is far-reaching and timely, I don't care how much you tell people about it, they're not going to use it.
Would you be in favor, Jen, of establishing a state-of-the-art connectivity system that connects residents and visitors to the top attractions in the city and really in your district?
Well, I feel like to a certain extent, the visitor center already does that. I feel like that exists. I feel like this is where we need better integration of services between Berkeley County. I happen to know, I used to work at Trident Association with the person in charge of tourism at Berkeley County. The fact that, she's not on speed dial with the city of Charleston is a problem. People forget that Berkeley County is a chunk of the city of Charleston. It's not the largest chunk, but it's there, it exists, and you can't just ignore it. We have to get better about integrating. I was looking over a plan today, I think it was the stormwater plan, right. And it talked about, working with the Department of Transportation in Charleston County. It didn't say Berkeley County. Berkeley County is a critical, important organization that has to be folded into those discussions. And until we start recognizing that as the city of Charleston, that Berkeley County is part of this ecosystem that we have here, we're not going to make good progress.
What will that ecosystem be like in the next 10 years?
You know, people would know if they live in the city or the county. I think we will have annexed more of the Clements Ferry area into the city of Charleston so that the services are consistent. I met with Peter Shahid today, and we were talking about that, you know, annexation is important. We need to be having those discussions, and we can't just have these, you know, big neighborhoods and then ignore the businesses, you know, creates what we call donut holes, where you have things that are county right beside things that are city. I can walk to my neighbor. I have a good friend that lives, you know, about a mile away, and I can walk, and she's not in the city. I am, but she's not. And so that creates huge problems. So I do think that, you know, we'll be more consistent with what's city and what's county. If we're going to move these lines, let's move these lines.
Yes, ma'am. And speaking of growth, what has been the growth rate for the city over the past 10 years?
I am not sure. I know that we're one of the fastest growing in the country, and I know that District 1 is the fastest growing in the city of Charleston, but I don't know that exact number.
What do you believe will be the population projection in the next 5 years?
Well, let's see here. I think we're in the next 5 years. I mean, a lot of that's going to depend on, you know, zoning and the permitting process in terms of growth. But we know that the economy is strong. We know that we have a lot of infrastructure dollars coming in. So I would expect it to be at least what we have now. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes up a little bit.
How many infrastructure projects are there in District 1?
There's quite a few. There is obviously the Clements Ferry project is, you know, the biggest one that we have going on right now. Daniel Island is constantly dealing with issues.
Sure.
Of you know, changing circles and things like that. So
Right.
yeah, it's yeah.
And I know you got to run, but let me ask you one last thing. What is the household type in District 1?
Once again, it depends on the district. So, you know, just like it's diverse. Downtown, you have college students, you have homeowners, you have some bed and breakfast where people live there. You have on Daniel Island, we have everything from apartments to, you know, multi-million-dollar homes. Same thing out here. It's, you know, people that have lived here for generations and people that are brand new to the area. So it's varied, and that's part of the beauty of this area. And we do want to make sure that we protect that.
How many homes in your district have been actually built at a fairly consistent rate?
Well, you know, we know Daniel Island, which is the majority of the district, was built in the last 20 years. Most of the homes on the Wando portion were built, either have been here for decades or were built in the last 10 years, well, 15 years. And then downtown, those homes have been there for a long time.
Yes, yes. Now, I know you mentioned earlier about Kaneohe and Wando. What is your 5-point plan for Kaneohe?
Well, once again, I don't have a 5-point plan. Kaneohe, we need to make sure that we protect the integrity of this historic community. We don't want to lose what's special about Kaneohe. We want to make sure that we are developing in a responsible way so that we don't just overtake it and turn it into another Daniel Island. That's not really what the community needs. It needs its own distinct characteristic and voices. And we need to make sure that we are giving the appropriate city and county services to the community. We can't have situations where one neighbor is getting one fire truck and another neighbor is getting another. That's not acceptable.
Yes, ma'am. And what current public and private partnerships would you be in favor of expanding for infrastructure in your district?
You know, one thing I've always been intrigued by and a fan of is the idea of a water taxi service to move people. Once again, it really works best if it is timely, you know, if it comes frequently and if it goes to a lot of places. But I really see the potential that could become a really interesting way to move tourists around the area. And some of those tourists that come without vehicles, move them into other areas of the community, especially the areas of the city over in West Ashley, where there are quite a few tourist attractions. And so that would be it would be a real bonus add to do that. So that's one of the many ways we could do that.
Yes, ma'am. How should the city explore multiple sources, that is, of revenue to minimize any risk to the city's current financial stability?
You know, I think that's about making sure that we're protecting these small businesses because that's a big part of our tax base. I think it's about protecting our investment in our real estate because property taxes are, you know, a big part of the biggest part of our revenue. So that means we mitigate flooding. That means that we take that problem seriously and we make sure that we're addressing it. So really, we just protect the businesses and residents that are here, and we don't do anything that will jeopardize them with the new development.
Yes, ma'am. And let me ask you, I know in December of 2020, this Charleston City Council approved a budget that actually included a tax increase for the residents. The city of Charleston is really expected to get nearly $21 million due to the local municipality portion of the latest stimulus package. Would you be in favor of rolling back that tax increase before Charleston County released the next round of tax bills?
So I think what we have to look at is what kind of infrastructure spending are we going to get from this influx that we know is coming? And we know that, we had a better year than we expected. So we know that tax revenues are up. So absolutely, it's something that we should revisit. If the money is there and we don't need to have a tax increase and we can meet our expenses, then we definitely need to discuss having a rollback. I think there is potential that could be the case with what the numbers that we're seeing coming out on the federal and state level. So that is something that we should talk about. Having said that, taxes are investments. And so if we're not investing in our community is going to deteriorate. So I want to make sure that, we don't go too lean and not put in the infrastructure that we need. I mean, we need fire departments. Fire departments are expensive. We need to make sure that we have adequate roads and bridges. We need to make sure that we have adequate walking trails and sidewalks so people can safely bike and walk around the community.
Yes, ma'am. How would you amend that 2021 budget without a tax increase?
I think it's a little premature to talk about amending that budget. Right now, there is nothing compelling that I think that is concrete that would suggest that we need to amend that budget. What I will say is that I feel like that information is coming. And so that's a discussion that we need to have, but I don't think we're there yet.
And going back to development, Jen, is a smaller scale commercial development more ideal for your district?
That depends. I think we have to look at each project individually. Do we want, a large commercial project that's going to make a lot of noise and a lot of, that's going to be disruptive? Absolutely not. Would we love another software company to come in here? Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that delay there, but let me ask you this. How should the city plan to slow outward expansion of the city limits and focus on making necessary changes within the city limits?
So I think a big piece of that is actually stop expanding, but expand. And what I mean by that is, we know where these outer limits are. So we need to make sure that, it makes sense if we push those outer limits out, that it makes sense. I think it made a lot of sense what we did on the West Ashley side to, we need to make sure that we're annexing the right pieces. Having said that, we don't want growth for the sake of growth, and we've got to be really careful that we don't do what we're doing out here, where we have, lines that meander in huge donut holes. When you have some of the area, some businesses, some homes that are subject to the regulations of the county, and some that are subject to the more stringent regulations of the city, you jeopardize the people that are in the city. You jeopardize their investments in the community.
What are those regional growth pressures around District 1?
Housing. People need places to live.
And let me ask you, because I know you got to run to the city council meeting that you want to get to. I got a lot of questions. Here.
That's good.
But we'll get back to you before January.
Everybody will know I was late today because I was doing this.
Yes. Which is very important. But let me ask you this. Obviously, if you're elected to office, and I know on day one, everyone talks about, well, I'm going to get my feet wet and talk to this person, talk to that person, get to know my council members. But what exactly will you do on day 2 if elected?
Well, on day 1, I think we're going to get to work. That's one of the reasons why that I am meeting with the mayor and with the other council members right now, why we're setting appointments with, the city of Charleston Fire Department and Police Department, while we are contacting the county. We need to make sure that we're up to speed. I sent a note today asking to meet with the Daniel Island Neighborhood Association because we need to understand what the issues are, because, we are without a representative right now. We're going into redistricting, and it is important that whoever has this position is ready to go on day 1, can get to work right away, and make sure that, when we do the redistricting, that Daniel Island and Wando and Kaneohe are represented in this new plan, to make sure that, we have adequate representation, and that people understand that, we need to make sure and take care of these services that truthfully are falling through the cracks out in this area. And so day one, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why I'm running, is day one I feel like I can. I am friends with the mayor. I'm friends with our state house rep. I have been in this community working with other community leaders for years, and so I know the people in this community. I know the leaders in this community, and we are ready to work.
How transparent, ethical, and accountable will you be if elected?
I feel like that's always been one of my strongest suits. I know people know where they stand with me. One of the concerns that I have, and this will be something that's announcing it here on your show, I haven't previously announced it. There's not going to be any ethics filings before the election. We will not know where anybody got any of their money from. So I will be publicizing my donor list because I think it's important for people to understand who is financing. I am not someone who's going to cater to business interests and developers' interests. I'm not going to have a conflict of interest. And so I think it's really important that we understand who's financing the folks that are running. And I think it's a pity that, this has been it's such a quick thing that we're not going to have, people will not have to put their ethics reports out before this election.
Jen Gibson, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun.
Likewise.